this is the project that got it all going, so probably about 5 years ago, but really it's been kind of a lifetime in the making. And for me, Cesare was just very representative of all the goaltenders of the era, and he happened to be the one that played for my hometown team, so I had that affinity towards him, but just really represented a lot of the guys that I don't think really got as much press and got as much accolades, maybe because of the teams they played on. So it really it was an opportunity to use him really as kind of a sample of all the goaltenders that struggled and prospered through the 60s and 70s.
If Jason Farris' first impression of Cesare Maniago had not been so positive, this book probably would never have happened. An impressionable young boy fascinated by the position of goaltending, and in particular with a player who came home to finish a distinguished career.
You know, he always struck me in the old Coliseum days. You could get down into the concourse area and really just hang around, and the players would come out, and on many occasions actually he would hang around and he'd sign various programs for me, and always just struck me as a good, decent guy, which he absolutely is. And so just that kind of just helps cement, you know, you want the guy that you're cheering for to recognize you, and so that was always a positive experience I had.
A humble gentleman who's played with and against the greats and transcended pivotal eras in the evolution of the game, Cesare was still not initially convinced that he wanted to be the subject of a book.
I didn't know who this guy was, got a letter from him, and then he followed it up with a phone call, and well, okay, fine, I'll give the guy 5 minutes of my time and just shake him off. And then he kind of got to me. He got in the inside of me to the point where this was a dream of his, to write a book on goaltenders. Not specifically just myself, but maybe I was going to be the main focus of it. And then once I understood where he was coming from, I said, okay, fine, you know, let's just try it out for the first little while. And then, you know, I found out in all the work that he was doing to get a lot of the information. I said, well, if this guy is ready to do all that, then let's go all the way with it.
As was the practice with his Jim Robson book, a major beneficiary of this publication will once again be Canuck Place.
It's one of these things that, you know, it's sort of taken on a life of its own, and for me personally, it's becoming a really important piece that it was fun, obviously, to see Jim's book take off and do really well in the marketplace and see people enjoy reliving the hockey history. But then to start to be able to cut some meaningful checks for Canuck Place, I think it certainly felt good. And I think as important as the money, we've been able to really help them build their awareness. And if you recall, at last year this time, we were coming out of a lockout when they were really having a tough time getting some awareness. So all those things are good, and it's just kind of carried on here, and both Jim and Cesare are such community guys and respectful of those around them and wanting to help in any way they can, that it just became a no-brainer to hook up with Canuck Place again.
The journey was long, from the protective, quiet streets of Trail, British Columbia, to downtown Toronto, and the pursuit of a hockey career at the fabled St. Michael's College. Initially, I didn't realize that it was that big, and it had a great following in the Toronto area. When I went down there, naturally I tended to be shy and maybe not as welcomed as I would have liked to have been, because pretty well all the players were from the eastern part of Canada. But once I was able to fit in with them through Father Bauer and a lot of teammates with the Big M, Frank Mahovlich, Dave Keon, Gene Ubriaco, Lou Angotti, you know, there's a lot of fellows that came through the system there and made professional hockey their career. The names are legendary: Bauer, Plant, Jacquemin, and Worsley. Elite goaltenders with whom Maniago would share the net. First up, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the chance to spend time with one of hockey's most beloved characters, Johnny Bauer. We do mention it in the book that when I was called up to Toronto, I played in a few games there, and he ended up winning the Vezina Trophy. And
I think it was $1,000 in those days that the recipient was getting. And he mailed me a check for $100 in the off-season. And boy, you know, I've never forgotten that, and I keep reminding Johnny whenever I bump into him and how gracious he was.
The title of this must-read for goaltending buffs came from Caesar's time in New York as a member of the Rangers.
I think they used to chant it from the rafters, those good rabid New York fans. New York was a bit of a starved team back in the 60s, and so somebody coming on the scene and making some stellar saves probably got them going. Obviously, it's a great nickname, Hail Caesar, and the obvious title for the book. The tagline, "The Trail Through the NHL," of course, is a nice play on the words. It both connotes sort of how the book is laid out, but also the heritage where Caesar comes from.
As he was entering his prime and ready to nudge his way to starter status, along came 1967, NHL expansion, and a chance.
For Caesar, who was probably the 7th best goalie in the world for probably a decade, that was clearly his opportunity to now carry a team, and many of the goaltenders that went to those expansion teams, of course, were carrying their teams. You look around at some of the goalies, and the teams were pretty thin, and it came down to goaltending. So that was obviously a chance for them to emerge, and Caesar was the longest-serving goaltender to remain with an expansion team after '67, and obviously became a fixture in Minnesota. So I think from that standpoint, provided a boost to his career, but obviously carried a franchise too.
Great save to Maniago.
Minnesota was the perfect fit for Cesar Maniago. Finally, a chance to prove himself, playing in a city with a rich hockey tradition.
I had played there a few years before in one of the teams of the Central Pro Hockey League, called the Minneapolis Bruins, and the two owners that were involved then also became owners of the North Stars. So when the draft came up, I was fortunate enough to be chosen by them, and to this day, very, very close with Walter Bush, one of the original owners. And felt welcomed right away. Felt at home because I had already spent a year in that location. And we had a successful first year. There are a lot of guys that were kind of sitting on the fence, not quite good enough to make it to the original 6 teams, but we gelled together when we were in that first couple of years in Minnesota. And a lot of those players have remained close friends to this day.
It is with some bemusement that Maniago observes the highly technical, mechanical, one-on-one coaching goaltenders receive today. It was a little different in his day.
I just related a story the other day when I was in Minnesota, and was having a rough time, and I knew I was having a kind of a rough time, and I think we had lost about 4 or 5 in a row. And Jack Gordon was our coach at the time, and he came up and he says, "Hey, Caesar, you know, you're not working hard enough." Okay, fine. So started bearing down in practices, worked at it, lost the next game. Came by again, says, "You're not working hard enough." And, okay, fine, worked hard and just really bared down. And lost the next game, and he said, "Hey, you're not working hard enough." And Jack, I says, "Hey, hold on here." I says, "I'm really busting my rear end to get things going. It's something that I'm doing wrong, and there's no one around to tell me what I'm doing wrong." Sure enough, a couple days later, we got Gump Worsley, got him out of retirement. And I asked Gump, this was in practice, I said, "Hey, have a look, I'm really having a rough time." And so he stood by, and I'm bearing down with the guys coming in and shooting, and he said, "Okay, fine." He called me over. He said, "Come on out a foot further, spread your legs maybe another 6 inches and bend your knees." Well, that was it. He spotted it within a couple of minutes. And really, that's the important part of coaching. And unfortunately, in those days, we didn't have the goaltending coach, but they had coaches for forwards, they had coaches for defense, and I feel the most important position of the game didn't have a coach.